So I had this thought today while riding my bike on my Zone 2 long ride today that I very well may be much stronger and faster than I realize, and that there are layers of this mental game that I likely haven't been taking full advantage of. And if you're like me, then you're probably in a very similar boat. And if you're not like me, you're probably a world class professional athlete or professional in your field of study, in which case you probably don't need to listen to this. But for those of you who have a feeling that you may be mentally holding yourself back, you may want to continue listening. So, as I was thinking a little bit deeper on this concept, I realized that when speaking in terms of performance and speed and general training talk, that my language would regularly skew slightly towards the negative, slightly towards um, the idea that I might be slow or injury prone or um, not wanting to push it too much on a consistent basis so that I wouldn't develop injuries, things along those lines where the thoughts may seem like they're designed to protect you and hold you into uh, a level where your body can operate in a more efficient way. That's like the idea and the concept behind keeping it so that you're running way slower than you need to, or not doing as many hard pushes as you need to so that you're not getting injured. That concept is fully valid, but there's a fine line between pulling yourself back too much and stunting your own growth and allowing yourself to operate in the level that you should be operating based on recent data. And so the other day, I did a run test, which I think I spoke briefly about what a run test is in one of my recent videos. But the whole goal of the run test is, in its simplest form, to determine how much faster or how much stronger you've gotten as a runner over the past several weeks, maybe months, maybe, the year if you don't do it very often. And as it turns out, I got much faster than my previous test results and much faster than the results that I would have gotten in, say, a race scenario um, around this time last year. And it's actually so much faster that my new Zone 2 pace that is derived from those test results made me a bit nervous because here I am telling myself that I am slow and have to run this slow to, prevent myself from getting injured so that I can be doing this for the long haul and, that narrative. And meanwhile, the speed at which I previously thought my Zone 2 was is like light years slower than the number that was derived from this test. So naturally, that bursting through that speed barrier for myself led to me wondering, am I mentally holding myself back by having my mind operating on this level? And the answer to that is probably. And that is exactly the type of thinking that I would challenge you all to evaluate in your own lives and see where you may be holding yourself back mentally and how that might be impacting your performance or, when all is said and done, your growth. If I didn't do that run test, then, and I never did a run test for the rest of the season, then I probably would have kept myself at this slow and steady level for the rest of the season. And, I would have finished out the season, but I probably would have just slowly inched along at this level and at some point fully plateaued, wondering why it is that I can't get faster, or even worse, it would have become a self validating prescription that I laid for myself, saying that I'm slow for this reason because I have this knee injury that I got however many years ago that like crippled me, and me coming back as best I can from that injury led me to this point, which is my new relative max. And that would have been a perfectly valid narrative had I not blown through that mental barrier during this past running test. So there is probably much more that I can think about and think through related to this concept, because I'm noticing it right now in my training, and I'm going to have to do my run tomorrow according to my new numbers, and there's probably going to be some portion of me that is holding back or nervous about not holding back. And I'm sure at the other side of this threshold, where now I'll be performing at this level, which is a substantially higher level than I was performing, there's just another barrier right in front of that would also be holding me back from performing at that next level higher than that. And so that's what I mean when I say that there are layers of this mental game that I haven't been using to my advantage, and that likely many of us aren't using to our advantage. Because if you think about the people who progress quickly or perform very well in their chosen field or discipline, oftentimes like you can't look at them and say that they're light years stronger or light years faster on appearance, and they don't necessarily have the greatest technique, or not in any way where you could fully justify the the gap that develops between those people and just the people not performing quite as well in a sport. And so I've always had this theory growing up in sports that there's a huge, maybe 90% mental aspect to these sports, to progress, to discipline, to bringing yourself up to a higher level of operating in sport, in your personal life, in your personal development, in your professional life, uh, business, money, you name it. The amount of mental barriers that hold people at certain levels and on different levels within even a single person are crazy and crazy to think about. And there must be a way to use the acknowledgement of the fact that there are levels that can be mentally broken through to your advantage. And so that's the thought that obviously we're not going to get to the bottom of this today, and I could probably talk about that for an hour and just talk in circles on the concept of how do you mentally bring yourself to a different level and then allow that to give you the energy to physically perform at or near that level in any other aspect, whether it's bringing out confidence in career, confidence in sport, confidence in making money. I think this is a big topic that falls just under mental game. Um, but I'd love to know your thoughts, and I'd also love to know where you may be holding yourself back in sport, in career, in money, mentally, because I could think of at least, this is going to sound crazy, but at least 100 people over, we'll say 10 years to make it not as extreme. But I'm sure many of us know people who, if you ask them to run a mile, they say, there's no way that I can do that. I can't do that. Not only can't I do that, but I will never do that. And I don't want to, on top of that. Now, do you think that person really believes that they can't run a mile? I think that they do think that. I think that some people really think that no matter how hard they tried, they can't run a mile. And I think that there are people who, no matter how hard they tried, they'd say that they can't run 5 miles, and then 10 miles, all the way up to 26.2, and then an Ironman. And you can probably see where this train of thought is going and realize that your 5 mile in your career might be you saying that you could never get to this stage in your career and never make this much money. Um, Meanwhile, there are people out there who you see make that much money and you see get to this level in their career, and you think that that's them and they're different. And that's the narrative in your head that's holding you from positioning yourself toward in that same level as that person. And that's the mentality that I'm noticing for myself in sport that I have to work through. But now, looking at it in sport, seeing the overall concept of that in life for other people, but in a very real way for me right now. So that's the end of my rant. And this is a very powerful topic that translates across many topics and disciplines and categories of life. And I challenge you to think of that a little bit and see where it leads you. It might lead you down somewhere interesting, like it has me so far, and like I will probably continue to write and think about to fully appreciate the concept. So enjoy your Saturday, and I will talk to you in the next video.